Welcome to the High Quality Fun podcast. On this episode, we talk to Patrick, who tells us about a spontaneous trip to Yellowstone. Patrick and a buddy drove 20 hours on a whim to visit the national park and quickly realized how underprepared they were while backcountry camping for the first time in Yellowstone, which is known for its dense population of buffalo, grizzly bear, and wolves. Throughout this trip, they experienced several close encounters with bears and wolves that really showed them how deep in the wilderness they truly were. Later in the episode, we talk about another trip out east where they turned off their phones and flew by the seat of their pants, navigating by map, completely winging each destination. This episode was a little bit stupid, but showed how being prepared for the worst but having no plan makes for really good stories. This was my second in-person interview, and I truly enjoyed hearing how much fun they had winging it while I puffed on a cigar and drank whiskey. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the High Quality Fun podcast.
I don't like to plan things very much. I don't know if that makes me lazy or crazy, maybe a little bit of both. But so this is college, circa 2010, and Buddy and I are sitting around on the couch, roommates, probably hungover if I'm being honest, and there was a TV commercial for these like gold coins, and one of them was a Yellowstone coin, and I just randomly threw out there, I was like, hey dude, you want to go to Yellowstone? He's like, what? I don't know. It sounds like fun. Maybe we should make it happen. He's like, all right, if you're down, I'm down. So we're taking college courses. It's summer semester. We're like, man, we're going to miss like a week of this stuff. I wonder if that's a big deal. Email our professor. She's like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. We're like, all right, cool story, we're going. So I had some...
What year was this too? Because
this is 2010.
So this is like right before... You probably had a flip phone, T9.
I probably had a Droid at the time. I think iPhones came out like 2008. I wasn't a rich kid rocking an iPhone at the time, so I had like some crappy Motorola Droid something or other. I don't know. But yeah, so 2010, driving a old Saturn held together with duct tape. That's part of the story. But so randomly throw this idea out there. All right, cool. How do we make it happen? We're like, obviously we need a tent. We need some sleeping bags. We need... Just kind of just start running the list of like all the junk that you probably need. And my girlfriend at the time, one of her friends, the dude did some camping and stuff up there in the UP. And I ran into him one day and I was shooting the breeze and he's like, oh man, cool. Yeah, I got these hiking backpacks you can borrow and like a backpacking tent. And like this dude threw everything at us. I mean, like gave us all the cool stuff that he needed. So shout out to Corey if you ever hear this episode. But so end up getting the hookup from this guy on pretty much everything we need, except I think I went out and bought like those water filter tablets or something like that. I don't know, a couple of things. And so yeah, probably maybe not even a week worth of planning. Packed the car up night before, we stay up till like 4:00 in the morning because we decided it'd be a good idea to make our own homemade beef jerky to take on this trip with us. Because obviously when you're hiking, you need trail mix, beef jerky, and Spam. Like that's about the three key ingredients we brought. So so we set out like 8 a.m. and just drove in shifts. Like one of us would drive, one of us would be riding shotgun, taking a nap, whatever. I think it's like 20 something hours out there, probably pretty close to 24-hour drive, and then stops and everything else. And so drive all the way out there in my car, super uncomfortable, like just miserable drive, but you know how that goes. You got those college backs, you're fine. But so it's July. It's like 4th of July weekend roughly, and we whole trip, drive through all the states, have a good time. We get to the park and it's snowing. So it's like 4th of July weekend and there's snow coming down in Yellowstone Park. We're like, wow, we really didn't plan for this. Here we think it's gonna be like 80 degrees the whole time. So get into the park. It's about 5-6 o'clock at night at this point, and we want to do backcountry camping. And so they have like the designated backcountry campsites and stuff all around the park, and you have to go to the office to go get a spot, go and they check out the book and all that. So We get there, office is closes at 5. It's like 5:30, 6 o'clock at this point for us. So we're like, well, crap, what do we do? And we could go camp with all the RVs and all the families and all that kind of stuff. But, man, we came there to backcountry camp. So in our genius wisdom, we're like, screw it. Let's just look at the map and go find one. So we drive and we just go pick a spot. We go park the car, grab all our stuff, throw our bags on, just start hiking out to this random campsite. And, man, we're not even 15 minutes down the trail. Come around this corner, and maybe 50 yards away, there's a wolf just standing in the middle of the trail with, like, facing away from us, but turned around because he obviously heard us coming and was staring at us. So we freeze. And I'm like, hey! Because, you know, wildlife, you got to be bigger than them, right? You got to scare it. It didn't care. It, like, trotted up the hill and just stood in the tree line and stared at us. So that was felt like a super great start to have wolves while we're going to go stay in this little tent.
The first red flag.
First red flag. The 9th red flag. So, hike back there is probably, 3, 4, 5 miles. We didn't hike. We had no idea how long it took to hike 5 miles. We were just like, oh, we probably walk at 5 miles an hour. We should be there in an hour. So we keep checking the time, and we're like, why aren't we there yet? Finally get to our campsite, set up. We're thinking we're all Billy Badass. We're out here. And, dude, the woods in Yellowstone are a creepy place at night. All kinds of animals. You look in the woods with the camp light, and you see eyes staring back at you, and just everything making noise. It was like, this is probably a terrible idea.
Isn't Yellowstone like one of the most wildlife populated national parks out there too?
Yep, it's the most populated. I think it's the most populated grizzly bear area in the lower 48 states. Like, the only thing that beats it is Canada and Alaska. Yeah. So, I don't think we knew that at the time. But I'm pretty sure there was a bear on the Yellowstone gold coin on that commercial. So we alleviate some of our fears with some Jack Daniels. Sorry, Tullamore, I know you're the sponsor. So, we leave some of our fears with some Jack Daniels. And, all right, cool, sitting there, finally go to bed. We wake up the next morning, dude, we felt like trash. We felt hungover. We're like, we didn't have that much whiskey. And another fun thing we didn't know, Yellowstone's at altitude compared to the UP. I don't know why we didn't know that, like, you're in the mountains and stuff, but we were just dumb. So, turns out you get altitude sickness, and it makes you feel pretty hungover, especially on your first day when you haven't slept and you hiked 5 miles and you went to bed with a belly full of Jack Daniels. So, we hike out. I'll add that Aaron drank some water out right out of the lake. Like, fresh out of the lake, he just, like, put his hand in and, like, scooped up fresh water because he wanted to. Like, the movies where it's you're drinking that crystal clear mountain water or whatever else. So he drank some of the water. I'm like, dude, I don't think you want to do that for the rest of the trip. Like, we brought a water filter. We can sanitize all this stuff. You don't want to get Giardia and freaking die the rest of the trip. So, he's thinking that's why he feels crummy, right? Because he wakes up in the morning, he thinks it's because he drank this water. We hike out, get back to the car. There's a note on the car, and we're thinking we got busted. The Rangers knew we were back there. We didn't pick a campsite. All this kind of stuff. We're thinking like,
the worst.
Come see the principal at the principal's office. Turns out I dropped my wallet getting out of the car, and somebody found it and put it under my windshield wiper for me. So, again, kudos to that person if you ever hear this podcast. But so then we drive to the ranger station to actually go get official and get our campsites. And they had to have known that we stayed there that night. We reek already, probably all red-eyed and looking terrible. They make you watch a video before you start going to all these places. Like, you have to watch this video on bears, what to do, throw your bag up over a tree branch and keep everything safe and smart, all that. Make you watch a video, picked out some campsites that were all over. I think we ended up being there like 5 nights, something like that. 4 or 5 nights I think we camped for.
All the same spot?
All different spots.
Okay.
So yeah, we picked out all these sites just kind of around the park. We're just like, look at a map and we're like, all right, there's a lake down there. We'll stay there. All right, cool, done. And so then we drive to the first site, or technically second site. Drive there, grab all our stuff, hike in. Again, a couple miles, we're like completely unfamiliar with how long it should take to hike X amount of miles. And so we're just winging this. Get to our campsite, and I'd say the hardest part about doing it this way instead of like picking a site and staying there 2-3 nights is you're constantly set up your tent, collect all your firewood, get all your stuff going, get a fire going to cook your food, do all that, and then take it all down and rinse and repeat. Right? So it definitely adds a lot of maintenance to your trip, I guess.
Were you doing this, coming back to the car at all, or was this kind of every campsite was along a route that you were going through?
We had to come back to the car every time.
Okay.
So we wanted to do that. We wanted to like backpack around. Like that first site that we stayed at, the ranger told us that it was a cool segment, and he told us it was the most populated wolf country in the park too. So it makes sense why we saw one. But it's like 5 miles to the first site, like 7 to the next, and I think it ended up being like a 30-40 mile loop or something like that, whatever it is. And he said it's a popular one for people to go hit. And I forget if we just didn't know that or didn't want to do that, or some of them might have already been booked by other people already. Like some people might go and stay at a site for like 3-4 nights, so we couldn't have gotten one. And then you're hiking like 15 miles in a day to get to that, next site kind of thing.
Right.
And I don't remember if you're not allowed to or they frown upon it, just like camping anywhere. Like obviously you're in this huge national park, you could technically just throw your tent over there and sleep anywhere you want. But I think they kind of frown upon that, so that if like anything happens to you, they can come find you or, yell at you for starting a forest fire or whatever else. So I guess you could do that if you wanted to.
I'm shocked you were even able to book this in advance, because if you go to Yellowstone now, I'm pretty sure you have to book everything 6 months in advance because it's so populated and everybody gets out there to book their sites and whatnot.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's, you probably know more than me at this point because I haven't looked into it in years, but they told us at the time 0.1% of all Yellowstone visitors actually go to the backcountry like trails and campsites.
Okay.
So I bet like the RV camping and all those kinds of places, those are probably booked for months, like you said. But I bet I think those backcountry ones, and again, maybe now it's more popular, but back then, like, they opened up the book and we had our pick of, I don't remember how many sites they've got, 100 or something, and we had our pick. So, but yeah. But, so we go to this campsite. It's out in a swamp, and it's like a dirt, kind of like this big mound. Maybe it's 100 yards, maybe it's 200 yards across, and camp there. We're sitting there, and it gets to be dusk, sometime getting late in the evening, and all of a sudden, wolves, like this whole pack of wolves just lets loose, like over the hill from us. I mean, they couldn't have been more than like 200-300 yards away. They just let loose, howling and just going nuts. And so, of course, hair on the back of your neck standing up. We're like, great, we're gonna die again. So. So we're just like, man, I don't know what we were thinking with this trip, but it's still fun. So, story on that, we run into a ranger like maybe 2 days later, and he tells us about this wolf pack in that area that hadn't got a kill for like something like weeks. And they finally got a kill that night, and that's what he thinks we heard because we told him about it. And he's like, yeah, that's probably what that was.
I don't even know how they would know that. They just have such a good trigger on the wildlife out there that they know that pack got something and...
Yeah, I think they just
hollering.
I think they just keep an eye on them somehow. Maybe it's the collars. Maybe it's somebody's job to follow a pack around as best they can. I'm not really sure. But yeah, good question. But yeah, this guy knew that this pack had gotten a kill that hadn't for like weeks. So makes sense why they were so excited.
That's still terrifying. I know the first time I went camping up, I think it was probably in the UP, and heard, wolves backcountry camping in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, it's scary if you're not used to it.
I don't know how you could get used to that. Especially that. Like, dude, they were going nuts.
Was it all in one direction, too? Or was it kind of like...
No, it was they sounded like a pack of them. So it was like 200, 300 yards over our shoulders, like up over this hill, because we were on the downslope of this hill, and they were somewhere up over that way, and it just sounded like, 4, 5, 10 wolves, like, no idea, all at once, just kind of like combination of barking and howling and yipping and just like the sound of dogs just going crazy, but like psycho dogs because they're wolves.
Yeah,
huge.
Oh, that's scary. So you were clearly underprepared for this entire trip.
Super underprepared for this entire trip. We there's some pictures of us after a couple days in, and we just looked like death. Like, we didn't bring vitamins, we didn't bring vegetables. We were living off of like packets of tuna. We brought pasta. We brought like powder, like Propel Gatorade type powder stuff. Ton of trail mix. Like, we were just eating trail mix by the handful, and I forget what all else. Some beef jerky, some homemade beef jerky, obviously. But yeah, super underprepared, malnourished, exhausted, just dumb, just absolutely stupid. So we're leaving that site, and we took a wrong turn. So I'm gonna blame Aaron for this. So if he ever hears this, he knows it's a running joke for us. I'm like, dude, should we look at the map? He's like, no, man, it's this way. All right, cool. So we take this turn, and we probably get like maybe 2 miles out of the way, wrong direction, and finally it's like, dude, we should have been to the car already. No, keep going a little further. Start hearing crashing in the woods, like trees, and there's like big wind gust or something came through and started knocking trees down around us. And a tree fell like from us to your truck away, like 10, 15 feet away from us. These trees just start crashing across the trail in front of us. And we're like, that was not cool. So we're climbing over them, finally get far enough that we're like, this is not the right direction. So now we got to hike back 2 miles in the wrong direction. Get back to the car, and got a picture of this too, where the car was parked, that windstorm knocked a tree over, and it landed like 8 feet from the car. Like, if it would have gone the other direction, it would have just totally crushed our car, and we'd have been out of commission. And we no plan. We're in freaking Yellowstone, broke college kids just being stupid with no other way to, like, what do we do? Buy a car for $500 out there or something? I have no idea. But yeah, get back to the car. That had happened. Tree almost hit us. Tree almost hit the car. We're like, this is a good sign. So we hop in the car. So to your question, yeah, we're bouncing around to all these different campsites. We get in the car, and so we're delayed, right? Because we just hiked an extra 4 miles for no freaking reason. And we're looking at the map, and our next campsite that we need to hike to, it was like, I want to say like 10 miles plus or minus. Mm-hmm. So 8, 10, 12, something like that. And we kind of had to make a judgment call. We're like, hey, it's already, noon. It's on the other side of the park. It's going to be 4 or 5 hours of hiking. Like, do we risk it? We're like, F it, man. Let's just go. So we're driving on the way there. On the way there, you pass Old Faithful. And so we see the signs, and we're like, oh, dude, Old Faithful, like, that's such a historic landmark for Yellowstone. Should we go? Nah. Go to Yellowstone, we blow past Old Faithful because we're on our way to this campsite. So I've never seen Old Faithful. Been to Yellowstone for a week, never seen the thing.
I was actually going to get into this at some point. You went solely to hike, so yeah, you probably got to see so much of the wildlife that a lot of people do not get to see. I've been to Yellowstone once, and it was just a drive-through. Similar thing, went from the UP all the way over there with my ex-girlfriend. And
Dang ex-girlfriend.
And we just drove through the whole thing and felt like we got to see quite a bit. But yeah, it was like Old Faithful and the wildlife and just all the scenic views. And so you're kind of just experiencing that in a different way through hiking. That's lame that you didn't get to see Old Faithful, but continue on.
Yeah, we definitely saw our fair share of wildlife. We probably saw at least 2-3 bears. There was one, like, right when we rolled into that first campsite. I forgot about that part. There was some grizzly bear, like, up in the woods not too far. And this tour bus full of all kinds of random tourists, like, pulled into the parking lot, and these people just came flooding out and started running toward the bear, taking pictures of it and everything else. And again, that's kind of our first foray to Yellowstone, as we see a bear and then we see a wolf down the trail. So yeah, we saw a couple bears, saw tons of buffalo. I forget what all else. Probably like elk and stuff. I don't even remember at this point. It's been way too long.
I remember all the people taking photos of the buffalo on the road and getting uncomfortably close to those things.
Ridiculously uncomfortably close.
Oh man. Yeah. So you that was what, night 2, I guess.
Yeah, night 2.
So you went past Old Faithful out to your
night
next
three
site.
night three is where we went past Old Faithful. So yeah, we had a hike. Like I said, it was something like 10 miles back there. I don't remember now, and I don't think we were getting a start till like noonish, something like that. So it was already getting pretty late in the day, and when that site we got to, they had this big sign about bears. They were like, hey, we know we have bears, but this is the serious one. Like, this is the spot that you got to watch out for them. And we're like, oh, great. We're starting this late. Most populated bear country. So we're like, all right, man, let's go. And so we had our little, like, tin cans on the side of hanging off of our hiking backpacks so that they would kind of rattle as you walk to, like, alert wildlife that you're coming and everything else. And then every now and then when we'd get a little scared, we'd, like, tap them with our stick a little bit extra, make a little bit extra noise. You're like, oh, I'm not scared of bears. Ting, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, don't worry about me. So yeah, we had that little tip and tricks there. But so we hiked back there, and this one was the most beautiful by far. It's like up and down. You're crossing all these different streams, tons of hot springs, like these bubbling sulfur hot springs that were all back there. And I think our campsite was on this lake. I forget exactly where. That first one was on Yellowstone Lake, I think it was called. But the second one was some different one. And so we're getting back there late in the day, get to our campsite, and there's people at it. And we're like, oh, this is weird. Like, we have this thing booked. And so it was two guys and a girl, and they came over to us and they said, hey, man, we talked to the ranger on the way out here. We ran into a ranger, and they said no one was here. And if no one was here and we got here, we could risk it to, take the spot if we wanted to. But if you guys showed up, it was yours. And, hey, we'll stay out of your way and camp over here if you don't mind. And we stepped aside and talked about it. And we're like, it's probably okay, but here we are, 10 miles in the middle of nowhere. Could be axe murderers for all we know. They could be idiots for all we know. Like, they could frickin' pound down some s'mores and just leave them laying all around their tent and ours, waiting for the bears to come or something, right? So we're like, we don't know these people. It's no joke back here in bear country. Like, we weren't going to risk it. So we're like, hey, hate to do this to you, but, like, yeah, it's our site. Back up, head on. And I think their site wasn't too much farther, like a mile or two up the trail from that one. But still, it was getting, it was like dusk almost, and they had to pack up all their stuff and take off. So I still wonder if that was the right decision. I think I still stand by it because, again, you just don't know back there. And this site is the one that I was showing you those pictures yesterday. As far up as you could reach your hand, there was claw marks from grizzly bears on the tree because they were trying to get to people's food bags that like string across that tree.
Oh my gosh.
So these trees are just completely clawed up. We found old like rear footprints, old grizzly bear footprints in the mud around the place. We stayed there for the night, and like the wind was blowing. I remember this. Wind was blowing at one point, and it was like pushing on the tent really weird, and it seemed like there was like a bear. Like it seemed like there was a bear like nudging its nose against our tent, like it's thinking like, maybe our bag still smelled like Snickers bars or something like that. So Aaron punches it, and it was just air. But I'm sure that would have gone well if it was a grizzly bear. But in the morning we wake up and there was a fresh print, like a fresh front paw print in some of the mud by the campsite, like kind of like down around the way. So super creepy. No idea. That thing probably walked through in the middle of the night for all we know. And again, like I said, like just you're not messing around when you're back there 10 miles, no help around, no cell service, no satellite phone, just roughing it. And man, this part cracks me up. I started laughing as I started to tell this because I remembered. So this is day 3, 4, something like that. We're filthy. We smell terrible. We've been hiking. We're two dudes living off of Spam and trail mix and beef jerky and hiking all through the woods. And they had the lake there, and we're like, yes, like today's our day. We're gonna go take a dip and get all scrubbed up and stuff. And we do. So we run out there in the water, like we're in our boxers. We're out there and washing up and stuff. And I'm just goofing off. And I'm like, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're like 12 miles from the road. Like there's no way there's anybody else around. So we're scrubbing up and all this stuff, and I start joking. I'm like, yeah, our luck, like some family come along. Mommy, what are they doing out there? Like, because we're like, scrubbing our junk and getting all cleaned up and stuff. And we're laughing, and I turn around, and I shit you not, there's 2 little kids and their dad standing on the shoreline staring at us as we're out here bathing in the middle of this lake in Yellowstone. And I'm like, oh, hey. And Aaron goes, ha ha, yeah. He turns around and he sees, and man, it couldn't have been more, it was like scripted. It couldn't have been any funnier than that. Like, here we are just goofing about how funny it'd be if some family was staring at us taking a bath out in the lake, and there they are. So that one cracks me up every single time, because the odds of, I don't know how that could have ever happened in my wildest imagination.
Two guys ruining the nature for family.
Just 2 dudes ruining nature for this poor family. They probably were so excited to hike down there and go fishing or something. Instead, there's 2 college jabronis washing their sacks out in the middle of this Yellowstone lake.
Oh my gosh. I mean, lots of stories come to mind when you're talking about all this. We went camping in Red River Gorge once, and oh my god, what was it? It was so hot, so muggy. We went the wrong season, and there were just like horseflies everywhere. So we were going to do this 10-mile circuit and end back at the campsite. And the way back got so bad as the sun was starting to set. The bugs were just chomping on me, to the point where I'm like sprinting down these aggressive up and down hills. I think I like rolled my ankle too. Bugs aren't touching Chelsea, go figure. But they're just chomping
It's a
all
blood
over
type
me.
or something.
I don't know. Mosquitoes love me. Flies love me. I guess it's great. I can deter everything from my family, but it was brutal.
A true family man.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The sweetness in my blood. And then we got back to the tent, and it was so hot that we laid there with no blankets, completely naked, and just like...
Well, this story took a turn.
Just tried to cool off. It was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up wrapping up that trip early because it was so bad. There was no way we were going to go and do that again. So I think we were heading down to Georgia, and we ended up wrapping up and just going. And we were so sweaty that we ended up stopping at a creek to shower. We were just driving down the road. We see one. We're like, hey, there's some pull-offs. Let's go swim and wash ourselves before we hop in the car for another 6 hours. And, I mean, we didn't get caught by anybody, but we are butt naked bathing in this creek on the side of the road, somewhere where people could easily pull off and see us. And
But it was Kentucky, right?
It was Kentucky. Yeah. And I was so afraid. Oh, we didn't have time to get dressed and dry off because the bugs came instantly.
What?
And they were chowing on both of us. And so we're sprinting butt naked back to the car. Parts where we're actually on the shoulder trying to get back to the car, and these bugs are just eating us up. And I don't think anyone drove by, but I figured there was going to be a family in a minivan just like, look at those streakers.
A van full of nuns.
Yeah, look at the streakers, whatever. And we get back to the car, and it was fine, but that just kind of made me think of that story. Let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. Here on the High Quality Fun podcast, we love showcasing people's stories through our interviews and posts. This gives our guests the opportunity to share their favorite memories, but sometimes audio alone is not enough. Most people are sitting on a collection of hundreds of photos and videos capturing their favorite moments without the time or experience needed to compile these memories into a video. This is why I have chosen to partner with Spivo. Simply send them your unsorted photos and videos, and in 7 days or less, they will create a professional video edit that allows you to relive your favorite memories again and again. To ensure every customer is satisfied with their video edit, Spivo provides unlimited revisions for 30 days and offers a 100% money-back satisfaction guarantee. As someone who has limited time to edit his family adventures, let alone this podcast, I am excited to work with Spivo to help everyone eternalize their favorite moments. Visit spivo.com/discount/highqualityfun to learn more and let us know what you think about the product. We'd love to share it. Now, back to the show. That was day 4. You're like about to get wrapped up from this trip now.
I think we did one more night. It was on nearby another lake. So again, you had to hiked all the way back out, packed up all our stuff, got in the car, drove to the next campsite, and this one was Get to this campsite, super windy, like insane winds. Didn't know how we were going to get the fire started. I just made it up. I just like made a chimney out of rocks and like lit a fire in the bottom of it, and it somehow worked. Like I felt like a freaking caveman getting this fire going because I had no idea how else we were going to get this thing. Almost, it was so hard to put the tent up because like you'd get the tent out and the wind just trying to like rip this thing out of your hands as you're trying to get it all. I mean, insane winds. Got that, did that site. That was nothing super memorable about that one except there was a rabbit, and we're like, dude, we haven't had any fresh food for days. We've been living off of Spam and stuff. So I think we did like rock, paper, scissors for who was going to get to try and kill this rabbit. And Aaron won. And he takes a hatchet and like whips a hatchet at this thing and missed it by, in his, defense, he only missed this thing by like a foot or so. But hatchet just goes and bouncing off and rabbit takes off. And so we missed out on that meal. But I think that was when we called it quits. Because I think that's when we had that photo of us. And we're like, we look terrible. Like, we looked like death, malnourished, exhausted. I mean, we've been hiking. I think we averaged like 8 miles a day, something like that, hiking for two guys that pretty much didn't do any kind of backpacking or anything. Yeah. Aaron had boots that were like half a size too small, so he's getting all these like blisters and sores. I mean, it was just completely unprepared, idiot college kids just doing this trip. And so that was it. I think that was pretty much the wrap on our trip. And so we drive back and we go to the what's that called? Like a store. It's like they got like this general store there, which we bought some bear mace there, by the way, because when we had to watch that video, they were like, "Oh, if you're going to go to this site,
bear mace."
I don't think they required us to bring bear mace, but they were like, "You really, really want to get bear mace." They're like, "It's no joke. Like even with bear mace, you might not survive a bear attack." So bought like this freaking $50-$60 can, something like that, of bear mace.
As broke college students. Yeah,
we were not thrilled about having to buy that can. Like, we'd hardly spent money anywhere on this whole trip. So, yeah, I had this can of bear mace. But anyway, so we get back to that general store, and it was a bunch of the tourists that were there that were, like, the ones that stay in the RV park or just driving through. So they're all clean and fresh and nice, and we're two dudes that have just camped 5 days in the backcountry, haven't shaved, haven't crapped anywhere but except holes we dug in the middle of the woods, this whole time. I mean, we were just god awful, and everyone in the store was like keeping their distance. Like they're like we smelled, we just looked terrible. We felt all manly. We're walking in there like we're top dogs and stuff. But we bought a 6-pack of beer, and so if my kids ever listen to this, I'm making this part up. But we bought a 6-pack of beer, and it was like it was like a mixed pack of this Yellowstone different beers, like a
variety pack.
It was like a variety pack, but it was like Yellowstone themed. It was like, elk stout and grizzly bear porter and all. I don't know what all else they had. So we bought like this 6-pack. So we're drinking these things in the car on the way, like leaving. So yeah, a little bit of drinking and driving. But so, and I mean, again, we're malnourished, we're exhausted, we're dehydrated, we're buzzed hard off of like one beer.
In the altitude.
And so we leave, and we're driving, and I can't remember the name of the town now. Look it up on a map, but it's like just outside of Yellowstone. You leave the park, you go through this town, and we stopped there to get food, and we got, I don't even remember what we ordered now. We ordered like the biggest burgers they had on the menu and had them add like an extra patty to it and sides and all this. And they bring you rolls at the beginning of your meal, and I feel like savages, but this family left and they had their basket of rolls on their table that they didn't touch. So we like ran over their table and grabbed them and like ate those too. Like we were just starving, just eating anything we can get our hands on. And so we left, and man, we just felt like rock stars. I mean, it was just zero planning, obviously a little bit of planning, but like practically no planning. Didn't know we were going to stay, didn't know what it was going to be available, didn't know anything what we were getting into, didn't have bear mace, just freaking winged it and just had.
What was the turnaround time from seeing this commercial to actually doing this trip? Like, how long did this actually come together to where you hopped in the car and started driving out there?
I think less than 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If that. Like, I don't even think it was 2 weeks. I think it was like, came up with the idea, emailed our professor like that day. She was like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. We're like, yeah, cool. ran into that guy Corey in one of my classes, like that Monday, Tuesday, whatever it was. He was like, "Hey man, like, yeah, I got all this gear," and I think he swung by my house like that day or next day, gave us all that stuff. We started laying everything out, figuring out everything we need, going to the Walmart, buying whatever we didn't have already, like camp soap and all that kind of stuff, and just threw it all together. I don't think it was. I think it might have been a week. I don't think it was. Definitely not more than 2.
I love that. I feel like, you know, that's how people get into most sports. You come into it, most sports activities, whatever, you come into it so woefully unprepared. And yeah, you drove across country to the biggest, densest wildlife national park in the United States, and I might be making that up, but I think that's relatively accurate.
Yeah, I'll buy it. I'll go with it.
You'll go with it. Who's gonna correct me?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I know that you and that guy have done other trips since then. Clearly you had a good time, like it scratched your itch, and you probably returned back to college and told everyone about how stupid you were. And
told everyone how awesome we were.
You left that part out?
Yeah.
Oh man. That's great. Especially like on a budget, if you're just like limping this car through, hoping that thing will make it.
And it did. Old Faithful.
Old Faithful
That's
Saturn.
the real Old Faithful.
Have you guys, this was one of your groomsmen, right? The guy you went with?
No. He was in our wedding. He did the reading, but
okay,
no, it wasn't
that's what it was.
Yeah.
So have you guys done any trips, or did you do any trips after that while you guys are still in college?
I don't think we did any more when we were in college, because that was senior year. So that was like that summer, and we graduated that December. But it was like a year or two later. I don't remember how it all came about. I'd never been to New England area before, so I'd never been up to Maine. I mean, everything up that way. And I was like, "Hey, man, like I kind of want to go, up to that area and go see what all there is to see." And similar story. No planning. We're like, "Hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's take a week off of work." And here we are, like brand new to our jobs. We'd been professionals for like maybe a year or two. Let's just go. Let's figure it out. So we load down his. He had a Ford Fusion that he had from work. Man, this story is probably as long as the one I just told.
Well, that's great. We're still early. Go ahead. I think we started at 3 and it's 3:30. Go for it.
Well, I think the theme. Let me pause and interject. I'm again, like I said, I'm either terrible at planning because I'm lazy or crazy. I just wing like trips like this. My wife and I went to Ireland. We went to Ireland for like 10 days. We didn't have a single place booked to even stay. We just showed up and just started driving. Like, didn't have a destination, nothing. Just showed up and was like, all right, let's go south and let's, there's a B&B on the side of the road. Let's swing in and see what their prices are and see if we can negotiate and all that. Like, that's just how I operate. And she hates it because she's like the type A, wants to plan it, wants to do all that kind of stuff. And I get it because it's stressful for somebody who needs to have stuff planned, as opposed to I'm just like, well, let's see what happens.
What's the worst that could happen? There's always a way out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this before, but I grew up. You always plan for the worst. So I don't know. Flat tires. Make sure you have tools. Bear mace. Or a weapon. Make sure you have enough food. If God forbid your car does break down, you got service or whatever to get yourself out of there. Like, if you're prepped enough, you can get out of any situation. It's not going to be fun, but makes for a good story. And honestly, having that freedom is just awesome.
Yes.
We did like a backcountry. It was a car camping road trip, and we didn't book any sites the entire way. Traveled the entire United States, and it was just pulling up on. I don't even remember the website, but essentially people would post where they stayed on BLM land.
Okay.
And you would just kind of read these half-ass reviews on this broken site and be like, yeah, that actually sounds pretty cool. Let's see if we can get the truck out there and 4x4 out there set up, and we found some of the most gorgeous spots in the world, like sitting on the rim of the Grand Canyon.
What?
Yeah, just sit on the rim, like walk out, make coffee, stare at the Grand Canyon in this area that if we didn't have the 4x4 truck, you couldn't have got there. Like, you had to have a Jeep or a truck with either a lift or enough ground clearance to get out there.
I was just thinking, like, that's huge risk. Get stuck somewhere.
Yeah. And there were other people that were doing the same thing. Like, we passed other campsites of people just, camping on the BLM land. So we could have hiked in and found whatever we want, but just the reward of doing these unscripted adventures is like fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think that's kind of the theme of your podcast, right? It's
just good stories. Tough times make good stories.
Tough times make good stories.
So yeah, I don't care what it's about, but just people living these cool lives or doing cool activities that people can talk themselves out of so easily. We've never been to Yellowstone. I don't know if we should drive out there. What if our car breaks down? It's like, okay, we'll figure it out. Like, let's just do it. Yeah, I don't know if you want to dive into your Ireland thing, because it sounds like a similar story, or talk about going out west with Aaron at whatever.
Let me do the out east one, because I feel like I'd have to have my wife here to do the Ireland story, because it'd be way funnier with her chiming in on her perspective of the trip.
We can probably hear.
I'm gonna be over here like, it was awesome. She's gonna be like, I almost killed him. But yeah, so the New England story, we made this plan, bought some stuff. We didn't do any, we were doing car camping for this one, so we didn't do any backpacking this time. We're basically doing car camping. And I don't remember where we got the idea from, whether it was like impromptu or whether it was something we had come up with ahead of time, but we decided to turn our phones off and not use any GPS. So I think our girlfriends at the time were super thrilled that we were going to shut our phones off for a week while we were doing all this camping. But yeah, so we decided to do that. And so we left from, he lives up in Kalamazoo, and we left through Detroit. So like I drove up to his place, hung out. His parents throw this, it's like Labor Day weekend, so his parents throw this pirate theme party every year. And so like we're drinking with his parents all night long, and then we leave at like 6 o'clock in the morning for our trip the next day. And so we drive over east, and we get to the Detroit-Windsor border, get to the border, and I remember the guard is like, hey, where you guys headed, and got any weapons in the vehicle? And he named off a couple of things. I forget what, like guns, mace, something like that. And we brought the bear mace with us. But we're like, we had machetes, we had hatchets, we had bear mace. Like, we're going camping again.
Right.
And
You're way more prepared this time.
And of course, we're like, no, he'll die that lie. And he just stares at us and is like, all right, let's just go. So we drive into Canada. Boom. We're in Canada. So probably half the reason we didn't want roaming charges. So like, boom, turn our phone off. We're in Canada. So we're driving through, and we slept on the side of the road like that first bit, because I think we got in at night. So like we drove across and just stopped at some like wayside, slept in the car for a couple hours, and then kept on our way. And then we came in down through, I want to say it was Niagara Falls, if I remember right, like that bridge at Niagara Falls there. Came in through there, so that was kind of cool, and then just headed up. And so we were using this map that his mom gave us from the 90s. She used to be like a park ranger or something in the 90s, so she had like this old map of, I mean, it was just like wasn't a special map, but it showed campsites on it. And the funny thing was, every single one that we stopped at still existed. So that was kind of cool. Like 20-something years later, all these campsites still exist. So kudos to the campsite service. And so yeah, we just start driving and like going by map. And it's like, all right, we want to get to here. So these roads, blah, blah, like doing it the old fashioned way. And then looking for the little like tent symbol on there. And oh yeah, like we can probably get to there and yada, yada. So we're going, and we started hitting these different campsites, and again, similar funny story. We're like, oh, let's, grab a little bit of beer and drink a little bit of beer on our cruise and stuff. So we're doing that like idiots. Driving, saw this wayside spot, and we go and we pull off this wayside, and I'm driving in, so it's dark, and there's a cop coming out of this wayside, like he was looking to just see if anybody was down there. And Aaron's like, dude, stop and talk to him. I'm like, no, I don't want to. So I just drive right past him. He's like, you idiot. So the cop whips around and comes down there and flips his lights on. And long story short, he made me get out of the car and do like a field sobriety test. And he'd called his sergeant. So the sergeant shows up and all this kind of stuff. And I blew like .02 or something way under. And they were just like, get out of here. Like, go find a campsite. So like we weren't allowed to camp there. And so we left, and we came across this campsite, and it's one of those ones that you just went and found a site, but you're supposed to pay like $10 on the way in. And I forget
it's like honor system.
Yeah, and I forget if we like didn't have any cash or we only had like 20s or something like that. And so we pull in and we just find a campsite, and we're like, oh man, hopefully like we're not going to get in trouble, blah blah blah, and they won't even know that we're here. And so that next morning, like 8 a.m., the dude comes in on his 4x4 and is like, hey guys, like you must have got in pretty late, We're like, yeah, sorry about that. And he's like, man, I don't care. And he's like, I think we like told him, hey, we didn't pay, but yada yada yada. So we gave him some money, and our car was dead, so he jumped the car for us. So we couldn't escape if we would have wanted to.
Go,
get out of here, go, run. Oh, car's dead. Hey, can we give you $10 for a jump? So we did that one, and then. Man, we just hit different spots. We went up to Acadia National Park up in Maine, and we hiked to the top of that one. And we thought it was like our Yellowstone days, right? We're like, have our backpacks. We got all our gear. We got all our sustenance and stuff. We're wearing our boots and pants and flannels and all this stuff. And there's people in like, they look like they're going to the freaking gym. Like they look like they're going to like a tennis match, just prancing up the hill with like a little water bottle or something like that. We got all this gear on like we're a bunch of freaking morons. So we did that. That was beautiful. Like, highly recommend if you've never been up to Northeast, like Acadia and all that kind of stuff. Totally recommend going up there. So yeah, we drove, like, did Vermont, did New Hampshire, hit all these spots. Man, like I said, the Yellowstone's definitely more memorable because obviously we didn't really have bears and stuff like that trying to kill us. But we were doing this thing all by map, all by, hitting these little spots and just hoping that things were there, find these campsites. We did one where it poured, right? Yeah. We set up our campsite, made our food, all this kind of stuff, and gotta keep this thing lit. Made our food, camped out, and then it just started pouring down rain. And this tent leaked.
Oh yeah.
So we start getting wet. We're freaking miserable night, all this stuff. Wake up in the morning, just let's get out of here. Freaking this campsite sucks. Grab all our stuff, pack it all up, hike back to the car. And it's probably only, it was like 100, 200 yards back to the car, not too bad. But we get there and there's a park ranger who had just parked and was going in. He's like, hey guys, oh yeah, what's going on? So he goes in there and we're loading up the car. He comes sprinting out of the woods, just pissed. And we're like, whoa, what's happening? He's like, yeah, you guys got to put your fire out. And we're like, what fire? Like, it poured down rain all night long. There's no fire. He's like, no, man, go. We're like, all right, dude. So we go back, and man, sure enough, the way that rain, like, it insulated the top of the fire, and underneath it was one of the hottest beds of coals I've ever come across from camping and everything else. Like, we unearthed it with a stick, and we're like, what is he talking about? And as soon as you unearth, man, the heat coming off this thing was insane. And I think we dumped over 3 gallons of water on these coals till it finally quit sizzling. I mean, and it poured down all night long.
Wow.
So that was like locked that one in the back of my brain for next time I go camping. Like, you make sure your fire's out, even if it poured down rain all night. I'd have never guessed, never in a million years, with how much it rained, that there'd be anything left, let alone this crazy hot fire.
We've had like big fires at home. My dad has this, wood burning ring where he feeds it with pellets. He just gets pellets from businesses and he tosses it on there. And yeah, you get that thing going all night, and then the next morning you can come out there and toss a pellet right on it, and it fumes right back up and burns. So that's definitely a thing. Something you definitely don't know until you've seen it. That's funny. That how far in did you have to hike to go put that thing out?
Like I said, it was probably like 200 yards, something like that. Okay, it wasn't anything crazy.
Brutal.
No, it wasn't too bad at all because we were just car camping. Like we didn't bring hiking backpacks or anything like that. But we felt bad because we generally are good about you make sure your fire's out, you're not littering, leave no trace, all that kind of stuff. Like we've always been cool about that. Like don't be a dick to the environment or the next person. So we felt incredibly terrible about doing this. I think we apologized profusely to this guy, and I don't know if he believed us or not, but
probably not. Probably took one look at you.
Mm-hmm. Bunch of jabronis camping out of his car. So then on the way, man, we called our girlfriends from payphones because we didn't want to. We were dead set on not using electronics,
you really
cell phones and all this kind of stuff. So we knew their numbers. We'd throw quarters in. They're like, "Hello." We're like, "Oh, hey, it's me." They're like, "What the heck? What are you doing?"
Just turn your phone on.
Turn your phone on. No, we won't. We're not doing it. And so we're doing all that, and then same thing. So Aaron had a friend who lived in Boston, and so I think this was probably midway through our trip. I don't know, 2-3 days in, something like that. We're already pretty gross. We're smelly. We've been car camping. And so we hit her up, called her up from a payphone again, same thing. I don't even think she answered. Probably left a voicemail, and we were like, "Hey, we'll try calling you back. It'll be from another weird number." And got a hold of her, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm in town. Come on in. I'll show you around. Go hit some bars, stuff like that." So we went and stayed at, it was like a Hilton, some kind of Hilton brand hotel. I don't remember off the top of my head, but segue to this is my job before that was traveling a ton. Mm-hmm. So I was all over I think this is after I'd traveled to China for work. And so I was the top tier, whatever you want to call that, member. And so here we are at this swanky hotel in Boston, walking in just disheveled in hiking gear, smelling terrible. And the way that staff looked at us, they were like, "Are these guys at the wrong hotel? Did they think they're walking into a Motel 6 or something like that?" And walk up to the counter, and they're like, "Can we help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you got any rooms available for tonight?" They're like, "Probably." And they were just treating us like trash. And they're like, "Okay, you have your ID and whatever else." And I handed over, and I think at the time I still had that platinum Hilton card thing, whatever else. As soon as I slapped that thing down on the counter,
they perked right up.
They changed their tune right away. They did one of these, and the manager saw, and he came over and was like, "Oh, sorry about that, sir. We're gonna give you guys a suite," and upgraded us to this, 2-room suite. I forget what all it was, but man, they bam, just like that, changed their tune. And so we get there, you know how that goes. Those are the best showers in the world.
Oh yeah.
Your normal everyday shower, yeah, it feels good. Your shower after 3, 4, 5 days of camping and feeling gross, you just feel like a brand new person. And so I think we did rock, paper, scissors over who got to shower first again. I think Aaron won that one too.
Man,
so
he's better.
Clearly I'm not a rock, paper, scissorser. And so so we got together with her, hit a couple spots. She had to bail early because I think she had work the next day or something. And man, you ever been to Boston before?
I've been there one time. It was for New Year's when I was in high school, so didn't get to enjoy much. Just kind of got to walk around. Would love to go back. It was cool to be there, but as an adult, being able to go to the bars would have been really nice.
Boston was probably one of my top cities, I'll call it. It just felt very lively. Mm-hmm. I don't know, very green, a lot of people out being active, having a good time, all that kind of stuff. And we were there in early September, so great weather. Okay. We went down to the water where they have some of the old ships and stuff like that. Did all that kind of stuff, just tooled around Boston. But highly recommend that city. That was a blast. So we hit that up, and then we left there, drove down through Delaware, hit all the states we could, went to New York City on a whim. So I'd never been to New York City before. And we're like, all right, let's go hit it up. So we go into New York City, parked, and parking was $60 an hour or something like that, wherever we
Because you were probably in
parked.
Manhattan or something.
We were like right there on. I'm like an idiot because I don't know New York that well. It's like
You're
the
near
iconic.
Times Square.
It's the iconic spot, Times Square. That's
Yeah,
what it's called.
okay.
Yeah, so we were by Times Square. So
Okay.
we wanted to go get like the New York pizza. We wanted to get a picture by Times Square, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we paid something stupid like $60 to park for like an hour. So that's how long I've been in New York City, is an hour. We parked the car, got pizza. Oh, that's Times Square. Cool. Left. Like that was about it. Took off out of there. Again, just drove back. I think we might have hit one more camping site in like Pennsylvania or something like that.
Just to break it up.
Yeah, just to break it up. And then we got back to his parents' house, crashed the night, and then we had forget if it was that night or the next one. We had tickets to go see AWOL Nation and Rise Against at DTE Music Center. So after this big long trip, we go there, hit a awesome concert, get back to his parents' house, crash, and I got up at like 4 a.m. or something like that, got in the car, drove to work, was at work at like 8 a.m. the next day, and that was the end of the trip. Like that was how it ended, just right back into the grind, into the work week. The beauty of being like 24 or whatever I was at the time.
Oh my gosh. When did you turn your phone back on? Was it when you got back to the concert or?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think so. I think it was when we got to like his parents' house. I think we turned our phones back on.
I love that so much. I know that it's always a blessing when we go camping or up north or something and you don't know if not you're gonna have service, and then you find out you don't have service the entire weekend, and you just have to almost detox from that like obsession.
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't so bad back then, but I guess yeah. I mean, you're not like bombarded with apps and all this stuff, but yeah, I like that you guys did that, because I know that every time I come back from a weekend where I can't use my phone, it's almost like a weight off my back, and I don't know, just like if you're stressed out, get in touch with nature, by any means, and and you can, I don't know, come out of the slump or whatever you want to call it. And then you're like doing this whole trip off of a map. I'm imagining the MapQuest days. You're just like, all right, let me print how to get to Joey's house. Turn left at this. Oh, I missed that light. I have to go find that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super fun. And I like that you actually got to break it up between nature and cities. It does remind me of that trip that we did, the truck camping, driving out west, because we ended in Las Vegas. We had
what more city is there than Las Vegas?
That was like the turnaround point. We went to Las Vegas. We had I actually took the rear seats out of my truck.
Be honest, did you win any money?
I think I lost like $20.
Right.
I didn't really go for the gambling.
That tracks.
Yeah, whatever.
All right, took the rear seats out.
We took the rear seats out because we had a new puppy, and we didn't want that thing running the back, peeing everywhere, chewing on everything. It still had its baby teeth. And so I built a stage and put this kennel in there. And so every time we got out, we would just or every time we got in the truck, we just throw the puppy in the cage, and we could turn around and talk to it, deal with it, take it out if we wanted to. And what was I getting at? Oh yeah, what
did you do in Vegas?
I mean, let me say this first. Like, we went to Death Valley with this puppy, and like, the dog got so good and so comfortable with the truck that we would just leave the truck running, like blare the AC, let it be comfortable. Like, oh, you guys are going on another short hike? I'll be here. And just sit there. But we got to Vegas and we found that this is like COVID time, so they'd had like free RV parking behind some of the casinos, and so we just pulled into this spot behind somewhere on the strip.
Yeah. Find some shade.
Well, it was night, so we got there at night pretty much to walk the strip, party a little bit, and sleep in the truck. Like, we weren't going to camp there, but we would literally go to our cooler. Like,
so if you slept in the truck, you had to like sit upright, because with the cage and the thing behind you couldn't lay back.
It was definitely a half-assed nap.
Okay.
That night.
Yeah.
The passenger could recline fully, and then I don't know if we adjusted anything, but it was a smaller cage, so I could recline a little bit. No worse than kids' car seats. But that was, I don't remember where I was going with that. That was very cool to just kind of like plop into a city, kind of like backcountry style.
Yeah.
And we did it so cheap. I think I gambled like $20, but otherwise we'd walk to the truck, let the dog out, say hi, like drink a beer, grab two drinks, put them in our pocket, and walk the strip again. I don't think we bought anything except for maybe dinner that night. And then you were talking about that shower, right?
Yeah.
The best shower you've ever had. It was before or after that. We went to San Diego to meet up with her friends, and they greeted us at the door. It's like, if you guys would just take your shoes off. Like, I don't know if you want that.
If you could take your clothes and your shoes, and
we took our shoes off.
We're gonna get the hose out and spray you down before you come in our house.
Yeah, we took our shoes off, and we were like a different shade of white on our feet. Like, never mind. I don't even think we barely said hi to them. We were just like, can we please shower, and then we can like chill and actually talk to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, you get that water on you, and you just get black water running down the tub for 5 minutes.
Nasty. Yeah.
That was.
You wash your hair like 3 times, and it still smells like campfire.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I like it. I like how this episode turned out with just talking about like flying by the seat of your pants. Yeah, I mean, honestly, thanks for sharing. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share, or if you want to give any shout outs or tell people where they can find you if you want to do that. Otherwise, I think this is a good spot to wrap it up.
Oh man. Again, shout out to Corey for hooking up 2 broke college guys with the equipment we needed to do the Yellowstone trip. Literally wouldn't have been possible without him. And then I forgot one part of the story that if Aaron would never let me live it down. That very first time when we were walking in, he had this machete. And I don't remember why he had a machete. He got it in
2 men just walking through the woods.
Had a machete. Whatever. You're going to bring this thing to Yellowstone. And for some reason, I was carrying it. Probably because I just grabbed it out of the trunk and, like, threw it on, whatever else. I don't remember. And I did something, like, went to tie my shoe or, like, do something, and I forgot it. So I, like, had set it down. Mm-hmm. I don't remember how far we ended up getting, but, like, realized I didn't have that machete. And when we got back to the car, it was gone. And so, like, to this day, he will not let me live down losing his machete. I think I bought him one for, like, his birthday one of the years afterward, but, like, it's still not the same. Lost his special machete. That
wicked
he had some
inside
bomb
joke.
Yeah, wicked inside joke. But, yeah, I lost that dang machete.
Oh, man.
But, yeah, no, man, thanks for having me on. This was fun to just smoke cigars and drink whiskey and shoot the breeze. Sponsored by Tullamore. But, no, that's just, again, if anybody's like on the fence about doing some stupid crazy trip, like I think you said it best, just kind of plan for the worst and wing it. And like worst case scenario, you got to figure it out, but makes for some good stories.
Yeah, I like it. Just start. You'll find out real quick if it's something you want to do, if it's successful or not. I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing with this podcast. I like listening and hearing people's stories, long form. Hopefully people get a kick out of it. If not, in a year from now, I still got to sit down and do this with you, and it's just like a fun way to riff about old times, simpler times before kids.
Simpler times.
We're sitting in a driveway and for the listeners,
sitting in the suburbs.
Yeah, sitting in the suburbs in a driveway. You can probably hear all the people walking by. But cool. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Cheers. And,
thanks, man.
Let's go watch some football.
Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the High Quality Fun podcast. If you guys enjoyed this show, please give us a follow. And if you have a good story or just want to say hi, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram or YouTube. Thanks for listening.